Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman. I'm the streamer for this stream, and we work on a Django application, a side project of mine. And I walk you through the steps of what I know about Django development to build an app that is going to be used for real stuff. So today we're going to continue on some onboarding flows that I've been working on the last couple streams. And we're going to get into the first actual form that we need to complete, the first bit of data that we're asking users to provide for the application I'm building. So we're going to start with that in just a minute. But before I start, I'll let you know about a couple things that ways that you can follow me. There's a URL up above for my personal website, and from there you can sign up for a mailing list if that's your speed. I write about Django, I write about Python. I try and keep the community informed through some writing as well. There's ways that you can follow me on Twitter. There's a handle up above, MB Lehman, and there's that same handle is something I use for a variety of services like GitHub and also Patreon. I have a Patreon account and want to thank a new patron, Rob, for signing up. His contribution will help cover some of the costs for podcasts that I also run. So thank you, Rob, for your contribution there. I'm really grateful. So I think that's what I want to add. I guess I will add a couple other things. There is a Discord link below. So if you have some questions that are not a good fit for Twitter and you're not online at this moment and catching this recording later, you can go to my Twitch page, look at the bottom below, and find the Discord link that will get you to the Discord chat where we can chat about Django stuff, Python stuff. Usually that's the kind of the topics that we focus on. My question of the day for y'all, just to have something to talk about. This is a very, very light one. Do you like April Fool's Day? I am not crazy about April Fool's Day. And I guess it's not April Fool's Day itself. That doesn't really bother me so much. I guess it's the internet on April Fool's Day. And I think that appropriately for this particular year, since we've got COVID-19 kind of dominating the world's thoughts at this moment. I haven't seen any April Fool's jokes, so I guess that's the one reprieve that we have in a pandemic. But yeah, not crazy about it. But if you like April Fool's Day, I'd love to hear why, because the mystery eludes me. So that's just some fun thing that we can discuss or not. But we're also going to get into the app that I'm building. So we started a milestone in GitHub to sort of track this work. And the first page that we were doing is this start page of the first thing that someone sees when they sign into the site will be this greeting. And let's bring that page up so you can see what that looks like. I did, as I promised, after the stream, added some real copy. We had sort of ended the stream with some lorem ipsum text, some fake text, to see what things might look like in terms of their shape. But I went back and put in something that I'm still not content with it completely, but it's a good start. And we'll check it out, see what it looks like. So I also made another change that you can see I have not applied everywhere yet. I thought about changing it. The more I thought about this top bar, which is what we did last week, the less pleased I was with it, or it just didn't feel quite right. Like I wanted a user to feel like they are being moved along on a path. And if you have your highlight over this, I plan on each of these pages to have the particular segment highlighted. It feels like all I'm doing is splitting the top bar into sub pieces. So I think what I'm going to do, and I kind of left a hacked up version in here, is switch to this pill style where it's an inset internally, and so as it moves along, there is this bit of continuity that goes with it from one step to the next. And when you hover over stuff, it'll look like essentially gigantic buttons. That's what I'm thinking of. So that was not what I was intending to show in this thing, but I noticed it immediately, and I noticed that it's different from the last stream, so I thought I'd comment on it. But you can see over here on the side, I've added some text here. I said I was going to personalize it as best I could to reflect the fact that this is something that we are doing in my household. We're actually homeschoolers ourselves. So the lessons that we are learning as homeschool parents are things that I hope to apply to the app. And I'm hoping that will resonate with people. But we need to actually go ahead and get the next thing in here. So I'm trying to decide where to put the next thing. There are a couple of places. I could continue to extend this. What I like about this currently is that it sort of fits my screen resolution, and I'm not really I don't know that I want to optimize for that, but yeah, I have two sort of real options for where to put a button. The first natural place to put a button would be at the end of this letter to someone. I could have a next button and have it carry them on to the next portion of this. So I think logically one argument there might be you've read through this thing, your eyes are already reaching down to the bottom, and here you go, here's the way to go next. The other option is people are visually drawn to pictures, and we have this picture on the side, and notice that the copy here kind of extends beyond. So another, maybe perhaps even better use of space would be to put the next button right below. So I think what I want to do is play with both options, see if one of them looks better than the other. To start, I might start with this side because it will, I think, be easier to manage. We shall see. But let's put a button in there, and that button is going to carry us on to the next bit of this process. So we have a start page. In fact, I don't know that we've clicked this. I think we did this. This is the sort of the stuff we did last time, was to give it a welcome thing and put a picture in there and have some personal brand. That's the thing that I did. But we're now on this piece of this to put in that new button. So I also want to take a little bit to think about what the button text should be. Next is the feeling that I want to give of how to proceed. I want this to feel like they're being guided along, but I don't know. It might be too short of a button. It might look really out of place. So the best thing that we can do in this sort of scenario is we know we need a button. Let's test where it's going to be and see how it feels. So I'm going to go over to a form that I already have, where I already have a button defined. And that button, I think, has the label of save. Okay, so here is a blue button, which is blue. The blue button is going to be the primary theme button of the site. In fact, I should probably at some point extract this into a template fragment so that if I ever decide to change the button, I don't have to change it into a million different places. But because this is a submit button, and this button that we're going to create is actually going to be a link, I'm not sure that I want to do that. I think I really just want the classes that are associated with it. So let's go to our start page and start hacking it in there. So we've got this template here, and here's all the copy. I'm not using any fancy system like Markdown to create the copy. I'm just putting it straight in as paragraph tags. And so we can drop our button in here for the moment. Let's make sure the whole thing is indented appropriately and see how it looks. And taking a bit. There we go. Okay, so it's clearly the wrong label. So that's the first thing to change, is to change it to a next label. Refresh, see how it looks now. So that's in that position. We could also set it to all the way to the right, which might be nice. And we can I don't like doing floats. This is not going to be a permanent thing. I'm going to float it right just to see what it looks like over there. I don't think I like that. I think it looks like it's been shoved in a corner. Nobody puts baby in a corner. So let's not do that. Let's take the button and drop it under the image and see what that does. So now we've got it over there. It still looks a little weird. So let's do a text center on the whole div, which should put it in the center. And how is that feeling? It feels better to me. It certainly feels better than in the corner. That just didn't work for me. I don't know that it's better than underneath the letter. Maybe it is. It's also kind of small. So maybe we need to change the text to be something something more meaningful. What if we said continue? Continue from what? They didn't actually come from anywhere, so maybe that's not right either. About start your school. Give it a good call to action. And maybe the blue button isn't what we want. Maybe this is a one time in the app where rather than use the primary button, we want something else. Because if I'm thinking about this, we have this gigantic thing of blue up here, which visually is kind of a big call to action. There's a gigantic thing of blue up here, and we have the same blue down here. So let's play with it. Let's see what would happen if we change it to green. And I don't even know how this green will look. It might not be the right green, but it's a start. It's pretty dark, and that's pretty bright. But perhaps this catches the eye better. I'm not sure. Let's try changing it to 600 and 400. See what that does. Now the green's really, the hover might even be too punchy. I don't know. So this message up here is start your school year, because that's really where this thing is going to go next. And as I'm staring at this, I'm starting to like the green for a couple of reasons. So thematically, the SVG image that we've added, and actually I'm going to turn off my flux so that I can actually see the colors for what they are, because I might be deceiving myself. So thematically, we have this SVG image was customized. And if you remember, you can set at this undraw site that we used that has SVG images, you can set the color. So the blue that's in my top banner and in this big bar is the same blue that's here on the little boy's backpack. And then the mother or the female figure in this person's life is wearing a red dress. And from what I know about color theory, red and green paired together. They are, well, are they complements? Color wheel. Bring up the good old color wheel. If you've never done this before, they're complements. They're on opposite sides of the color wheel, and when you have that scenario, those are considered complementary colors. So if you start looking around, you'll see this all over the place. Designers use the color wheel pretty religiously. And if you observe patterns, you're going to notice orange and blues together, greens and reds together, purples and yellows together. It'll start to become really obvious if you've never learned about the color wheel. So in this scenario, we have this woman in a red dress, and I think it sort of naturally flows to this green button here. Now that I see it with my flux off, though, I want to go revisit with the other colors because I think my eyes might have just been deceived by my flux saturation. So yeah, I think that I like the deeper green, just feels good to me. So that feels like a good start. We're going to say start your school rather than just next, because next is very bland and generic. And we need to change it to be a hyperlink. So we're going to change it from a button to a link. And I need to get rid of some stuff on here. So this print hide thing is something that I'm doing for the print layout of that daily page. So that's not actually needed. And then it's not part of a form. So we don't need the submit type either. So that gets us down to what is actually appropriate for this particular button. Ooh, but that really messed some stuff up. So now that it is an anchor tag, that's probably what affected the spacing here. So let's come back through. Well, first of all, let's inspect it and see what happened. That's really large. See if we can give it some more space. And it does have margin, but it seems like the SVG is not heating that margin. So I don't know what's going on there. Here's the SVG image, taking up that full amount of space. There is, what is happening? Well, I don't know. What can we do? Maybe, because the A tag should be a block level element, so I don't think this would matter. But maybe I'm wrong. No, that didn't matter. So surrounding it with a div didn't do anything. We don't want to give it more padding, because the padding is what's defining the spacing around the text here. That's not the way to go. And we've already given it quite a bit of margin to handle that. So it's just like ignoring oh, you know what it might be? I think perhaps image tags, are they block level elements? So what happens if we wrap the image tag itself in a div? So leave the anchor tag not wrapped because I don't think that's doing anything. Is that going to do it? Dang it. What is going on here? So we're in a div. The div is set to have a width of 1/2, but that's for the row. Okay, that's the two sides of the screen. I keep pointing at the screen like you can see my fingers. It's for the two different sides of the screen. And so that's defining that stuff. So we're defining the row, but we need to separate this these elements that are in this column. And clearly the margin is not doing what we think it should. Because look, that margin is going right into that picture. So it's like the SVG icon is sizeless of a sort, even though it clearly has a size. Okay, how about maybe we need to learn, maybe I'm missing some knowledge. So SVG sizing, size margin. I don't know if some margins. Now this is all about SVGs themselves. It's not really what I wanted. What could we search for? SVG margin below? Not a floating element. Yeah, the other thing we can try, I guess, is maybe we can add margin bottom to the SVG. So if the top is not working, maybe we can tell the SVG to push down anything below it. So let's do that. Well, actually, let's do it to a class that's surrounding it now. So let's say margin bottom 8, and then get rid of the margin top. See if that solves the problem. There we go. Okay. So in the other page that we were looking at, the margin top was set because the thing above it may not have been there. So normally I like to flow margin stuff down so that I put things under the elements, so that it's not, the element is not just assuming that it has to be above. And so that's a weird kind of edge case where content varied. So it actually is probably better anyway to put the margin, attach the margin to the bottom of the element prior to it so that it just flows properly down. Okay, so we've got our anchor tag, we've got all the classes on it, and we need to give it an href position. So we're going to come up here and we're going to say href, and for the moment, since we don't actually have a view yet, we're going to put the hash mark so that it will actually be clickable. And now you can see that it's got the hand icon and we can click on it and it's just taking us to this page. That's fine. So we need our next view, and I think that actually kind of completes this step. We're not going to call it next, but that's okay. Although we haven't given it a link yet, so that's fine. So the other thing we're going to do is bring up, what are we going to bring up? The start page for the school year. So I already defined what this is. It is going to be at this path. Whoops. And that should give us a place to hook in the URL so that we can get going. So let's actually make a Python view that will match up to that. So this stuff I put into a special file called start URLs. And we're going to add a new one here. And like that. And what do we want to call this? So I think I want to stick with calling these start something. So we'll call it start school year. And got to put a comma after that. And it's going to be school year with a trailing slash. So that should give us the path. And for the moment, I'm going to leave it with the same start view. So this will actually, both views will respond to the different year. That made no sense. Both paths, the start path and the start school year, will go to the same view. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. So we'll come back to the start page, and we're going to replace this with a URL template tag of core start school year, like that. And we can come back here, refresh, and now when we hover over it, you can, well, pay attention to the lower left corner of my window on the Firefox window, and you can see it's going to start school year. But if we click this, it'll take us to start school year, but it's going to be the same exact page that we saw. All right, so what we really need to have then is a template view, or a template for the moment. It might become a form view later, but we'll start with a template view to go to this next page that we care about, and then we're going to fill in the content. And I think for this process, I probably am going to make it very visual for all 5 of these steps if I can. I'm not asking for a lot of information in any of these steps. So it would be extremely Spartan if all I had was a form that said, for this view, for example, we're going to need a beginning date for a school year and an ending date for the school year. Those are the only two pieces of information that we're asking for. So if all I had was two fields and then a button, and that was the whole page, it would really be very uninteresting. So I think what I'm going to do is alternate having a picture and text or a picture and text kind of back and forth. So we'll go look for a different SVG icon or image that we can use, that we can put on this side. So we'll kind of keep the same structure and let people get some sort of visual guide as they go through to give them a feeling for the things that they're putting in. Hopefully we can find appropriate SVG icons for each of these phases in the process. If not, we'll fake it and we'll put in something that looks close and call that done. So we're going to do a template. Now we need to get into the actual view. So we're going to go back to our core area and come to the bottom. And did we actually write tests for this or not? I can't remember. So maybe we need to stop and do that. I think we did. Okay, we did. Good. So we're going to do a test-driven method for this. We need another test case, and this one's going to be called start school year. And we're going to change these things to be school year, the actual reverses. Okay. And this one's going to be more involved because it's going to have some post handling eventually. It's not going to be just a get request, which is the first page is, because the first page is purely informational. So this right now should pass because it's still pointing at the start view. We haven't changed anything. Both of these should pass actually. So now we need to customize this to point at the new spot. So let's take this. We're going to change this to be start school year view. And again, we haven't actually hooked this up yet, so it's still pointing at this. So even though we've created a new view, it's not used yet. And now that I'm looking at this, hold on, I want to check something. Oh, okay. So let's go to our URLs file for the start URLs. And we'll come in here and we'll change this start view to start school year view. Okay. It's a very minor change, and and to get confidence that it's still the right change, we will run the test case again, and those two tests pass. So now they're pointing at this new view, which is great. It's doing exactly what we want. But here's where I'm going to deliberately break it to see that at least the OK test will fail, because we're going to change the template that we're going to pass to. And now I'm thinking about how do I want to. All right, here's a decision point. Templates that I have. I think so far they have all been named. Nope, not true. I use underscore on a couple of them. So let's be consistent. And let's name the template start school year, like that. So this first test should pass because it's checking authentication. So if you're not authenticated, you don't get in. So that should still pass just fine. But now if we run this test, it should fail because that template doesn't exist yet. So the way that I'm going to fix that is to go to the start HTML file and go up, because it's going to be in the same directory area, and we'll say start school year.html as the file, and we'll write that. And that alone should make the test pass. It's not very interesting, but now we can come back to our server, and if we refresh the page, notice that we're on the start school year page, but now it's totally empty. And it's totally empty because that template is totally empty. So it's doing exactly what we think it should be doing. But the we actually like a lot of the flow that is in this main start template. So let's take that and just copy it over. Most of it will actually be extracted probably. And it's probably time to do that, in fact. So we need to make the hero, not really a hero. Hero is kind of the term that you see used on big images that are overlaid. The start banner is probably a better name. We need to extract that into its own little component, and we need to modify it so that it can be aware of the context that it's being used in. And what I mean by that is when you're on a particular page, I want to be able to pass in and say, like, you're on this page, so don't show it as something that only displays on hover, show it as something that's persistent. Like coming back to this view, there are going to be like 5 different states that this bar has to handle. It needs to be, or actually there's really going to be 6. There's going to be, this is the first state, this is the second state with this one shown, this is the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then the 6th is going to be for when none of those are used. And I think I'm going to use this bar on the main home view if you have not completed all of the onboarding steps yet, so that you have a mechanism to get back into the flow. So that's going to be what I'm going to do there. So let's go back to this thing and start extracting this bar. Before we do that, I guess we need to clean up the style so that it will be this consistent style of like I'm showing here. And we'll apply that to all of these other bits. And then we'll pull that piece out into its own HTML fragment that we can use the Django include tag to include it into our start page. And then from there, we can drop that into our school year page and then clean out the rest of the data that's in there and start building up that view over there. It's a lot of stuff. Hopefully some of that made sense. If not, don't worry about it. We'll go through all of this together so you'll see exactly what I'm doing. We're going to come back over to the start page, and maybe the first step that we should do is extract this thing to its own spot. There's no harm in doing that first. So that process is pretty straightforward. We're going to come up to the core templates area, and we're going to call this, what should we call this thing? Let's call it the start banner. It seems like a good name. And we're going to go back into the start page and take this whole tag. So I'm going to highlight this entire tag. Is that all I needed? Yeah, that's the whole bit. And we're going to go save that. So put it in here. And now we have, so at this stage, I've destroyed the banner. It's gone. I extracted it from that start template. So let's put it back in. But before I do that, I want to tweak this ever so slightly. There we go. So let's come back in here. And now we can use the include tag. So let's do an include. If I could type properly. And we'll say core start banner HTML. And by doing that, we should now have our banner back. Great, it worked. So we can also, I guess, I probably should have done this beforehand, but we can delete that, delete around this tag to get rid of all of that. So the school year page will no longer have it. And in fact, let's go ahead and just make sure that it will have it when we come back to that page by setting it there. So at this stage, our start page and our start school year page are exactly the same. We haven't changed them yet, but we will in a bit. But first we need to come and fix the styling on the banner. So I really, when I was playing with this, I did not clean all this up properly. So it's still a bit of a mess in here of what I expected of the different states. So we have this state where, like, I've taken out, this version is hovering with this hover blue, hover 900, or hover 100 blue. Gosh, I can't read. Hover text blue 900 and hover background blue 100. Okay, so that's what happens when you hover over that area. But you can see this one is not using the hover because I was just testing it. So we're going to have two sort of states, and this needs to have a hover version and a non-hovered version. So I am going to duplicate this anchor tag, and this might not be the best way to do it. Let me pause before I actually make this decision. I think this duplication might be what I want, because I think when you are on the page, like if I'm already on this page, it doesn't make sense to be able to click it again. You're already there. So I would like that to just be like this persistent thing. It doesn't need to change to a hand. I don't want you to accidentally click it and lose your data if you put in some data already on the page. So I'm just going to have it be a div that will have the right style. So the persistent version, we're going to take this stuff out and we're going to change it to a div. And let's put it, look at this now. It's probably going to be all kinds of messed up. And it's messed up because this was carefully set to fit in the 12 column grid system that's available, and we've now blown that up. So we need to control which one gets shown. And I think I'm going to do that with a variable. I'm going to call it step, I think. Step's probably a good name. And step will be a variable that we pass into the include that the template fragment will then read from to know which of the particular pieces to display as the persistent step in the process. So if we do if step is equal to welcome, then we're going to do this persistent one like this. And, or we're going to say else, else it's going to be equal to the link version. Okay? And so now with this, because I've done this in this way, and there's not going to be any step variable in the context. In fact, let's give it a, no, this name's good enough. There's nothing else going to be adding step to the context, so that's fine. There's only going to be one version. And why is it, and it's showing, the version that it's showing is one where it's using the anchor tag. If you look at it closely, it's the hand. It's not the other thing. So in fact, let's look at the alternative version. So let's split this up. And the way this works is you can pass in variables to an include with this syntax right here. So we can give it a variable that include will have when it gets rendered. And so now if we refresh this thing, whoops, I am incorrect. Okay, we need to look this up. I should know how to do this because I've been doing Django stuff a long time, but clearly even I make mistakes. Unknown argument for include. All right, include. I thought you could handle extra parameters, so what's going on? Django built-in template tags. And we want to go to include. With. I forgot the with word. Okay. So this does work. I just forgot an important word. So that's the signal that you need in order to pass in variables. Okay, so now notice that this is now different. Before I'm building a homeschool app. So my family homeschools. I've got 2 children here, and my wife is using a current homeschool app, and it's kind of flaky, and it looks like it's from the year 2000 or something like that stylistically, and it may have been like it seems like someone who is a developer who was in my shoes perhaps a decade or 2 ago, and he built something for his family, and built it in a different era, an era when you had to deal with stuff like IE6 and those sort of things. So it is full of a lot of features, but it's not holding up to the test of time. Yeah, the Stone Age, if you will, the internet Stone Age. So I'm trying to make something that has the subset of features that from that app that my wife uses, and also give let her be in full control of the flow that she wants. So there are things that she doesn't like about that other app that I, as her developer and entire dev team, will be able to implement on her behalf. So I'm building a homeschool app. Is the short answer, and the longer answer is all that context I just gave you. But right now, I'm working on the onboarding flow for the app because I would like to ultimately share this with other people and other homeschool families. Because I think if it works for my family and my wife, there's reason to believe that it could work for others too. So part of that process is going to be what's their first experience like, and that's what we're working on right now. So we've got this first step of the start banner set to welcome, and as step will only apply for each step in the process. So every page, no, you're welcome, no problem. Every page that we build out in this flow will have a different value for step here. So for the instance, the next page, I'll probably say school year, and we'll do some checking down here. So what we need to do, and I think what I may find more valuable than trying to fix all of these, is just to delete the ones that are here, and replace them with this block that I have up above. And for just so I can visually, let's get rid of this to give ourselves some more room. And so we can visually distinguish this, I'm going to add some white space for now, just so we can really see, because it's kind of jammed in there. And yeah, I guess technically I am adding more bytes to the payload for the HTML page, but really it's only like 6 characters, so it's okay. So let's take this one and bring it down here. And we're going to, what I really need to capture is the stuff inside of it. Start your break school year. That's what we need to replace with. So change the inner tag with start your break school year. And we'll do the same thing to this tag. And then we'll delete this. And then we need to change the step. Change it to school year. Like that. And I could possibly make this context aware of the request. There's no reason why I couldn't, because the request is always added to a context. Not always, but in most circumstances, it's a context processor that's added in the default start project. So most Django apps will have a request object available to the templates that are rendered. So it's theoretically possible that I could make this banner know what view it's in. But I think I'd much rather kind of invert that control so that the page that's using it has to specify which step that it cares about. And that's going to give me a little bit more flexibility than the other approach. So now we've got this, and now we can bring up that other start page, start school year. And if I did this right, then we say with step equal school year. like so. And we can come back to the second page. Whoops. So something's not right, because I've said step equals school year, but it's still showing this version. So that's not correct. Ah, I never fixed it for hover. Oops. Okay, so let's close that. That's now template is gonna be right. I still like that version, but we need to change this version to have hovers in front of them. So we want this to be hovered. So it'll hover to have a background state like that. Nope, it's already got that. What's going on here? Something is not right. Because notice there's hover down later here, so I messed something up. This definitely is the anchor tag, though. We can inspect it and see. Here's the anchor tag. It's got hover on it. Oh, maybe it's... Okay, I'm doing double duty, I think. So we can, I think, just delete those two so they only appear on hover. There we go. Now, when hover comes up, it pops up. And the other one is a permanent fixture. So we also need to fix this one because I copied before I made that change. So we'll come down to this other anchor tag and we'll delete those as well. And now I'm questioning, so do we want a large shadow? We're on the school year one. Let's see what a large shadow looks like, if we can even notice. Whoops. Oh, these have hover on them. Okay, so this is where I really flubbed it up. The states where it's just a div, hover is not needed. Let's delete to that. Okay. And that's using a large shadow, so which probably means we should use a large shadow on the state where you're going to hover on it. Okay. So here we go. Now this is what I expect. And we can come fix this link to go back if we want to. So what are we doing? We've got this page here is now a link, or this thing is a link. It's not going anywhere yet. This is now static because that's the page that we're on. And then we're going to follow suit with those other three in just a moment. But let's return, since we're here, let's go ahead and fill this in with the proper URL for both of these pages because we have it. So let's change this to URL core start. And that's one. And then we'll do the same thing down here and change it to school year. And something about my Vim setup is when I add certain tags, it automatically indents the other way. I don't know why it does that. I end up having to correct it. It's weird, but I have never taken the time to figure out why it's doing that. Okay, so this page is now clicking back to start, which is great. It's hard to observe any difference because the pages are basically the same right now, but you can see in the URL that it's start, and this page now moves forward to school year. Cool. Okay, so I think the next bit we want to do is fix these other three links that will finish off the banner to be in the right form. And then what can we do? I think then we can start working a bit on the actual view for the school year page and block in maybe a new image, go search for a new image to add as something attractive for the flip side. Put in a notional form. I don't know that we're actually going to get to the actual form handling tonight. We've already been going for about an hour, but that might be a good place to wrap up for the day. So let's take this and we'll replicate this chunk now. And I am thinking a little bit forward ahead as well. There is another area where I might want to give some sort of sense of completion. So let's say in this step, part of this step is creating a school year record. So if you haven't been around before, this is your first time joining the stream, I've got a school year that it is basically the root of all of the modeling for every course, every action that needs to happen in the year is rooted at that. There's one object that's automatically created when somebody signs up, and that's the school itself. And then everything hangs from the school, but the school year encapsulates everything that happens. So each of these things is a piece of the tree. It's a school year, then a grade level, and then courses in the grade level, and then tasks in the courses. And the purpose of this onboarding is just to get people a sense of, here's how you build the first one of these. And the first one, we know you're going to add more later because setting up for homeschool is complicated. There's a lot of things that students have to do, but we want to guide you through that minimum path to getting all the way to the end. That's the whole goal of this onboarding. So from that end, it would be possible to have this banner be smarter and check data in the database. And so perhaps if I got a little fancier, and I don't know that I want to now, as each step is completed, there could either be a change of color to maybe a nice, I don't know if green would work well with blue, some sort of indicator that this piece is done. You don't need to come back here. And that way people could follow it along. I don't know how I would do that with the welcome one because that's purely textual. So it might actually look weird to have colors or completions for each of the others. Although, yeah, we could do this one. So the welcome one would be nice in the sense of if somebody adds their school year, it means that they've definitely been to the first page and they've also completed the second page. So at that point, we could check off both of them visually if I chose to do that. I don't know that I will, but it's an idea that I've had. But for now, we'll stick to this approach of just filling in with this stuff. So our third step is going to be grade level. So let's call it exactly that. And we're not going to use that banner today. We're not going to create that view today, but we can at least put in the placeholder stuff. And the text is create with a break tag, grade level. I can repeat that over there. And both of those did that weird outdent thing. Let's delete that. So now we should have 3 of them. So now this one has the proper, and you can see we're down to there's the 2 to convert to pills. So let's take this one and put that here. And it's going to be, instead of grade level, it'll be course. And we'll change that tag to add a course break to your grade. Do the same thing on that tag and delete that. And that one's done. And then one more for the last one. The other thing I like about changing this to a pill is check out this like last hover. I don't know if you can see how well you can see that on the stream, but it really monkeys around with like the corners. Like the hover is like overlapping here in weird ways, where I think the pill is just going to settle nicely inside of the banner, so it won't have any strange artifacts in the output, which will be a nice little side effect of this change. Okay, so we've got this step will be, I'll call task. And we'll change the text to make your first course task. Do that here too. And indent those both again. Okay. So our banner is completely done. These are going to the same school year page because I've got all of the anchor tags hooked up to the same thing. So that's fine. But this first one is going to the actual start page. Although you can't really tell yet, again, because I haven't changed the content. So what is my full-time gig? I am the software architect at Doctor On Demand. So Doctor On Demand is a big telemedicine company. As you might imagine, I am a pretty busy individual right now with COVID-19. But my regular job is to work on a big Django application that is many times the size of this application that we're building here. But the kernels of what I'm showing here are a lot of the same stuff. That what I like about Django is that it does scale up to huge projects. I mean, Doctor On Demand has hundreds of thousands of lines of Django code. We take a different approach at work. We have Django APIs and full single-page application apps using Angular, and then we've got iOS and Android clients and those sort of things. But so it's slightly different, but a lot of the core concepts of making views, doing tests, and all of that stuff is the same. Oh, very good. Yeah, we're switching over to Vue as well. So a lot of our web application is built on Angular. I always get this wrong. Is it Angular or AngularJS? Whichever is the 1.x series that before Google blew up the Angular world with their completely backwards incompatible rewrite. But that's something that's a work in progress. We've got a shim layer where there's a bunch of Angular code, and as we get to new code, we get to write components that are in Vue, and it all just works together. It's interesting, I'll say. Yeah, Vue's a pretty cool tool. I have found for side projects, I started my last side project using an SPA model, and as a team of one, I couldn't justify the benefits of it. So it's cool for making really rich dynamic applications, but I think for a project like this where it's me, myself, and I as the full development team, Django's server-side rendering model is like perfectly adequate for me. So I don't have to like duplicate modeling and data passing between two different layers. It just works a little better. Not to knock Vue, of course. Okay, so let's go to our back to what? What should we go back to? So we've got our fragment completed, our banner completed. We're going to come back into our start school year view, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these around. So this is a flex layout, and they're just half and half. Yeah, well, that's a good question, Kuba. Is it Kuba 4? Anyway, I'm hoping I'm getting your name right. I used, on my last project, I used Ember.js. And, no, you're fine. Like, I'm here to take questions too, so this is fun. I used Ember.js, and I built a Django REST API over there. And what I found when I was doing it as a one-person project with an SPA was I would write all of the modeling, the Django models, and do all the database stuff and make an API endpoint. And then when I needed to get to the client side, I had to replicate a lot of that same logic in Ember, because Ember Data's system kind of has a model state. And I know that that's not the only way that you can do Ember, but it is like the way that's advertised out of the box. And I was new to Ember at the time. So as I went along with that project, what I found was I would, I'm a proficient Python person, crank out the API in no time. I felt like I'd get the modeling done, and then I'd have to do very similar work on the Ember side before I could actually display anything, because the some amount of modeling had to be present on the Ember side so that it knew how to query properly using JSON API, like not generic JSON APIs. I'm talking about JSON API, the spec. Uh, if this thing, if you've never seen it before. So that's what Ember data uses by default. And it's just a structure for your JSON APIs in the generic sense of, like a RESTful API. So what happened with that particular project, which I have since abandoned, is I got to a point where I just was like banging my head on this stuff over and over again, and Ember really felt like it was starting to slow me down, and I made the hard decision to scrap the Ember client that I had basically spent at that point like nine months easily working on. But what was amazing is that I switched to a server-side rendering. I had completely implemented everything that the Ember version had in like a week or two, which is telling. It might be telling partly to my experience with Ember. That's a fair point, but the speed at which I could make a Django server-side app was pretty cool. So I am squarely in the camp of, if you're building a new project, to start with a server rendered version of it. And if I'm not like in the jQuery camp where sprinkle a little bit of jQuery in there, but when you need something dynamic, that's when I'd probably start to reach for something like Vue, to have maybe a Vue component that gets rendered for a particular server-side page to serve a particular purpose, if that makes sense. But very much in the progressive enhancement kind of camp at this point. So I jive a lot with what David Hennemeyer Hansen of the Ruby on Rails community, the methodologies that he ascribes to, although we probably differ on a fair number of points. But I think he's got a pretty good mindset. But if you're on a bigger team and you need a super rich client app, that's the way you have to go. But for this project, I found that a server-side rendered page, especially if I keep the query count low, will be fast enough for what my wife needs for this homeschool app. Okay, so I just flipped that around and I save the page. So let's see how it looks. All I'm expecting to see, well, this actually is not quite true, because I added some margin. Okay, it might look a little funny, but it's okay. So if we click this button, now we got the stuff on the other side. What I was commenting on is that the margin was set to the left side, so there's margin over here and not over here, so it looks weird. We can fix that. So let's switch it to margin right. This is one of the reasons that I really love Tailwind, is that you just change a little utility and you get what you want. So once it refreshes, there we go. Although maybe I do want some amount. I'm not sure, we'll see. Although this page isn't going to be a bunch of copy, it's actually going to be a form. So we will have to play with the padding. It felt good on the start page this image just kind of naturally has some white space, and the padding seemed pretty good as is. But if we have a clear form on the side, like if there's a box here and a box here and a button here, it might look a little strange lined up with the banner. I'm not sure. So that's something we'll want to think about. What I know is going to change for certain, though, is that button is going to move to the text side. That's definitely going to be true. And just for the moment, let's put some padding on it. of PB, nope, margin. Margin 4. Give it some space. And a bunch of these are going to come out, because this is all going to be forms. Just trying to get a rough feel for where these elements will be. So we're going to put a form in here. It's going to be probably, I'm trying to remember now. Let's go somewhere else for a moment, because I don't remember if you add a task, okay, this is the style that I went for, of having labels to the side, boxes to the other side. And actually that'll probably work pretty well with that start page, because the banner will still be across the top, and having the form element kind of naturally with a ragged left from the labels on the form, we'll just give it the right amount of spacing, I think, when we see that in action. So yeah, let's figure out how to wind this down for the evening. We're going to put a form here, probably next stream. Let's see if we can find another undraw picture that is appropriate for a school year and drop it in place. So this is a cool service that I showed off last time. Is it undraw? Yeah. It's by, they're free SVG icons by this individual, Katerina Limpatsuni. And it's also hooked up to a search engine powered by Algolia. It's really cool. So the way I found that image last time was I just typed school. And we've got this back to school image that came up first. So from the school search, I wonder if any of these kind of represent a school year. Got this one here of learning, and some books. The other one we might search for is, we're talking about a school year, so what else could that be? The other operative word in there is year. I doubt there'd be anything for year. Well, that'll surprise me. Might search for time instead, is what I was thinking of. Because I don't know that these truly make sense. And year is very specific. Wow, she has a ton of these. Okay, let's try time. Oh, here we go. This is cool. So I mentioned last time that I have a bias, admittedly, but the people in my life that do homeschooling are by and large mothers. And in this first image, we have this picture of a woman in a red dress. And if we're talking about the school year, this image right here seems to be a woman with a red shirt and kind of raising the hands like, what's the time? So I think what I want to do is perhaps use this picture as like a way to ask the question, what time do you want? And hint at a connection between one page to the next being the same similar woman. But before we do that, there is this little color thing. And this is the really powerful part about Undraw, which helps you, if you're building a new app, helps you tie it to your site quickly. So you can see it has this color of 6C63FF, which is a nice purplish bluish color. Yeah, I think that's more purple than blue, right? But my app is not that color. So last time I did the color highlighter and found out what this color is. It's 2B 6CB0. So 2B 6CB0. And now what that's done has adjusted all of the SVG icons on this page to use that color, tie into the theme, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to download this one and we will save it. And it was currently called Undraw Time Management. So I'm going to move from the downloads area, the Undraw Time. Oh, maybe I'll just copy it in case I need to refer back to it. Undraw Time Management. And we're going to copy it to the static files area. And thanks, Kuba4. Have a good night yourself. We're going to copy it to as a different name, and we'll just call it time. Sure. So now we've got our time SVG, and we're going to come in here and change the static to say time SVG, and we'll change the alt text to be woman contemplating time. That seems good. And we don't need the div tag anymore because we don't have anything below this. So now we can come back to our page, can get out of this, try a refresh. And I got it wrong. What did I do wrong? Nope, I didn't get it wrong. I was just taking it sweet time. Ah, hilarious. I don't know why that took so long to load though. Is this thing huge? These things should not be terribly large. Okay, refreshing this page. Time. No, it's tiny. Okay, maybe it was just my web server being slow for some reason. It is a development server, and because of the way it works, or some of the ways that Firefox handles it, it doesn't always load super quickly for every request. But it doesn't have that behavior when it's actually running in its production setting. So cool. Now we've got this little time question or a time picture. Start your school year. What's going to go here is the two boxes that will say, like, pick your dates, your start date and your end date. There might be a little paragraph that says, what are you doing right now? So that people understand what they're about to commit to. And yeah, that's, I think, what we'll probably work on the next time. So this text will go away. We'll replace it with the appropriate thing. We'll fill it in with a form. And the form, assuming that they fill in, we'll need to do some validation. So making sure that they provide real dates that I can set appropriately. And if they do, then we will save that, create a school year record associated with the school, and forward them on to this next page about creating a grade level. We also need to add some checks, probably. Well, this is downstream, but a downstream changes that we're going to have to add is there are going to be some precondition checks that say, like, if they happen to click on one of these first and want to view it, we will redirect them back to the page that the next page that they need to fill in, so that they're working the next step in the flow. So I think that's where I'm going to end the stream for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. I do post this stuff up on YouTube, so you can check it out there. If there's anything you want to refer back to, I have an account there that you can search for Matt Lehman, and I post all of these videos up there. I also have them with show notes usually on my website, which is above at mattlehman.com. Across, you know what, why don't I just show you? It's easier to show. Here's my website. You can come to Building SaaS, And there's this page here where I post all of these show notes, which have links to the YouTube videos and all of that, so that you can find everything that you need. But thank you for tuning in. It's been fun. Hope you have a good night. Take care.